Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Shlok, Samir, Pranav, Abhijit, Alvin, Shantanu, Shirin. My number is very less, only 21 it is showing. Any reason? First lecture is still going on. Diptesh?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Shantanu?
Yes, sir.
फर्स्ट लेक्चर आपका खत्म हो गया?
आज नव्हतं सर फर्स्ट लेक्चर.
No?
नाही सर.
Then,
D,
fourth session
D,
was there.
DMEचं नव्हतं का?
नाही सर. सर रेकॉर्डेड लेक्चर टाकणार होते आज.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So we'll start. Okay. I think my screen is visible to everyone and I'm audible also. Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Shlok. Okay. So in the last lecture, just we discussed more about the content for the unit number 2, in which the two parts are there. One is related to the gear manufacturing and second one is related to the thread manufacturing. Okay. So we discuss what are the major content related to the gear and the thread manufacturing in the last lecture. Okay. Now again, can anyone explain whatever the topics or the points which we discussed in the last lecture? Anyone? Anyone those who are present for the last lecture? Aniket? Aniket More? I'm audible, Aniket? Gear terminologies. Yes. Okay. Gopal, can you explain whatever the discussion is there regarding the unit number 2? Gopal Harde. Gopal,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
audible.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes. So we last lecture we discussed about the types of gears, their terminologies, and what is the gear.
Hmm.
Sir, lathe machines are sir practical होतात.
No, 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 no. Just we are discussing about the unit number 2 related to the thread and gear manufacturing. Okay, so if you remember, we discussed the content for the unit number 2. Then we discussed more about what is mean by gear with the help of small video clip. We have seen that what is mean by gear and what are the different types of the terminology normally used in the gear manufacturing process. Apart from that, also we discuss more about the what is the basic purpose of the gear, where that gear it is being used. Then apart from that, what are the different kinds of the application of the gears? We discuss that in the detail. Then we discuss the point related to the materials of the gear. So what are the different types of the material and what are the important factors which we need to consider before selecting any kind of the material for making the gear. Okay. So that is what is the kind of the factors we have to select or we have to remember when we are selecting a particular type of the gear making. When we are considering to purchase a gear making material. Then apart from that also we discuss more about the whatever the category of that particular the material is there. Ferrous metal is there. Then what kind of the loading conditions according to that we are going to use that particular the ferrous metal. Then non-ferrous metal likewise. Apart from that, in the non-metals also, we again consider the polymer or the plastic is one of the important kind of the material which is used to normally manufacturing of the gear. Now, today we will try to discuss more about the whatever the different kinds of the gear manufacturing processes are there. So, in that, definitely forming processes are there, casting is there, forging is there, and some of the cutting processes are there. Okay, I think my screen is visible to everyone. Yes, Joshua, any doubt or any query is there? Yes. Okay, so far as these different kinds of the gear manufacturing processes are concerned, so we know that there are the different kinds of the normally the stages are there. Okay, so in which we are going to perform the whatever the kind of the gear which we want to manufacture. Okay, so again in the last lecture we discussed more about this particular the stages. Generally, we are going to consider in the manufacturing of the gears. Okay, so if we consider the gear manufacturing process, okay, slide number 32 is visible to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Shantanu, slow. Okay, thank you. So, if we consider the gear manufacturing process, so basically, if we consider the its classification, so the gear manufacturing process is broadly classified into the two main category. First one is the forming process, and second one is the machining process. As we are seeing in this particular the current slide number 32. Okay, so when we are considering the first is the forming process, so in that also there are the different kinds of the processes like casting is there, sintering is there, injection molding is there, extrudent is there, cold drawing is there, stamping is there, preforming is there, and the forging is there. Okay, so these are all are the processes are coming under the category of the forming process, gear manufacturing process by the forming process. Okay, so it is there, casting is definitely there, then forging is there. Okay, so these are the two processes which we have to learn in this unit so far as the syllabus is concerned. Now, when we are considering the second category, that is the machining processes. So, in that, again, it is further classified into the two category. One is related to the roughing process, and second one is related to the finishing process. Gear roughing process and gear finishing process. Clear? So, in the roughing process, we know the form milling is one of the kind of the process that is used for the gear in the gear manufacturing. Then rack generation is there, then gear shaping is there, and the gear hubbing process is there. So all these processes which we can categorize as a gear roughing process under the category of the machining process. So apart from that, again, when we are considering the gear finishing process, okay, so gear shaving process is there, gear grinding is there, gear burnishing process is there, gear lapping process is there, and gear honing process is there. Okay, so when we are considering, these are the five different types of the processes which are related to the gear finishing process. Okay, so shaving, gear shaving process, gear grinding process, gear burnishing process, gear lapping process, and gear honing process. So taking into consideration the whatever the type of the contents which are mentioned in the syllabus, so we need to concentrate on those processes first. Okay, so in the additionally, or in we can call it as a content beyond syllabus, we can learn the different kinds of the forming processes as well as the machining processes related to the gear manufacturing process. Okay, so now first one, slide number 33 is visible to everyone. Pranav?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So when first process, suppose we are considering under the that forming process. If we consider this is the forming process, so in that we are considering first one is the casting process. Okay. So when we are going to consider the casting process, so we know whatever the different kinds of the casting process. Just in the last lecture also we have seen there are the different kinds of the casting process normally used, but so far as the gear manufacturing is concerned, so we may select the sand casting is one of the process, then die casting is one of the process, then investment casting is also there. But apart from that three processes, definitely the other processes are there, which are used for making the gears. But apart from that, when we are considering this, all these three processes, which include a sand casting process, die casting process, and the investment casting process, so it is applicable for the wide variety of the material. Whatever the kind of the tooth on the gear which is we required, so that is what the shape of that particular the tooth, which is built into the mold at a very low cost and needs a minor finishing operation to improve the accuracy of the gear. This is what the kind of the post processing once we manufacture the gear by using either sand casting process or die casting process or the investment casting process. I think you all are familiar with this casting process. Yes. So do you have any idea what about the casting process? Anyone? Amaya, can you just let me know what is mean by casting process? A simply sand casting process. Amaya Marmuni.
So basically, we make a mold and we
Yes.
put it rather like let us consider a tub. So we put sand, we split it into two half. We
Yes.
the mold which we have prepared, and we put it like I can't explain it that strongly, but let us imagine two.
Oh, okay, okay. Just. I want to know whatever the process which normally we discuss in the second year. So let you know or let you understand that particular the process or not.
Yes, sir,
Because
yes.
when yes, am I correct? So as we know, when we are considering casting is the process. So different kinds of the parameters in the casting process are there. Particularly the sand casting process. Suppose when we are considering. Okay, so pattern is there, so pattern making process is there. While designing the pattern, we have to consider the different kinds of the allowances. Then mold making is there, so by considering the different kinds of the sand, okay, so we are making the mold. And there are the standard process which are there, so in which we have to locate the runner, riser, and all these different elements of the getting system. Okay, so that is what normally we know when we consider the casting process, that is a sand casting process. Okay, so here what the purpose for which we are considering this casting process is for making the gears, correct? So when we are considering this casting as a process for making the gears, so one must know what exactly the things which are happen in the sand casting process or the other casting process. Okay, so again one must know whenever we are selecting suppose a sand casting process or the die casting process or the investment casting process, so what are the some of the unique features of this particular the processes when we are considering casting is one of the gear manufacturing process, correct? So if you just observe the slide number 34, so in that it is mentioned casting is one of the method of a gear manufacturing process. Remember, casting is a forming process. Okay, so forming, we must understand exactly the difference between the forming process as well as the machining process. So anyone would like to differentiate between the forming process and the machining process? Anyone voluntarily? What exactly meaning by the forming process and what exactly the meaning of an machining process? This is a basic
Yes, sir.
difference. Yes, yes, Devang.
Uh, Sir, in forming processes, we actually make a material. Like in case of casting, we make a particular material. Making a gear. Like we make a mold and we pour molten metal in it and we form a gear. And in machining process, we do finishing of a particular component that we have made. Like in gears, we give surface finishing, then we give proper profiles and all.
Correct, correct. Devang, absolutely correct. Anyone would like to add whatever the Devang said, the difference between the forming and the machining process?
Yes, sir. There is one difference.
Sir,
Like in forming, we don't do anything with the material. Sorry, we do things with material. Like in casting, we melt the metal. Whereas in machining, we don't do anything with its chemical properties, or rather, we don't heat it. We don't apply any process on that, apply any chemical on that. For machining, it is pure. Like we take the metal, we put it on a ram, and that ram is either wearing out its material or something. But whereas in forming, we either melt it, we either get like we kind of change its chemical properties directly, indirectly. In
Yes, Amaya,
coating side,
correct,
in
correct.
extruding also.
Mrudula, you want to add something, Mrudula? Muskan, Muskan Tamboli, I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Can you differentiate whatever the Devang and Amaya say? Can you differentiate between the forming and the machining process, Muskan? Okay, so just I will let you know the difference. So definitely forming process in which whatever the kind of the shape or the kind of the dimensions which we know for the final product. So we are converting the raw material just by heating it or by pouring it into the whatever the by considering the any kind of the process. Correct. So we are not removing the unwanted material in the forming process. That is what we can say that is the main and the basic point which is supposed to be there. So far as the machining process is concerned, whether it is a roughing process or the finishing process is there. Okay. So definitely in the machining process, we have to remove the unwanted material. Okay, to convert the raw material into the required shape. Okay, so material removal is there in the machining process, whether it is a finishing process is there or whether it is a roughing process is there. That is what is the main basic difference is there. Whatever the difference which is discussed by Devang as well as the Ameya, these are the definitely the points which are there. Now, when we are considering this casting as a gear manufacturing process, so in that particular, the gear blank means the whatever the circular shape of material from which we are making the gear. So that particular part we can call it as a gear blank. It is actually a workpiece material. Okay, and from which we are converting that workpiece material into the required shape of the gear. Okay, so we can define that is an gear blank. So gear blank, even the gears along with the teeth requiring substantially to little machining or finishing are produced by the various casting process. Okay, so now we are going to consider suppose the sand casting process. So we know what exactly we are doing in the sand casting process. Okay, so as we know, whatever the size and the dimensions of the gear we are going to consider. So according to that, the entire whatever the prerequisites steps which we need to perform in the sand casting process. So definitely we are going to perform. Such as it is mentioned in this current slide, the blanks of the large cast iron gears, if required to made one or few pieces are produced by the sand casting, then the blank is prepared to appropriate dimensions and the teeth are produced by the machining that cast a preform. Okay, suppose when we are considering this particular the sand casting process, so we must know what are the different kinds of the material which are we are considering for making the gears by using the sand casting process, such as the cast iron is there, cast steel is there, then bronze is there, brass is there, and the ceramics. These are the different kinds of the material normally we can consider for making the gears by using the sand casting process. Okay, so this is what about the important material. Then what about the different kinds of the applications? Okay, so normally whatever the kinds of the gears which are manufactured by these material by considering the sand casting process, so these are used in making the toys, small appliances, then whatever the Normally, in the building constructions or in the different kinds of the construction, cement mixer barrel which is supposed to be used. So whatever the kinds of the gears which are there in the cement mixer barrel, then apart from the hoist gears, gearbox of the dam gate, lifting mechanism, then hand operated crane. These are the some different kinds of the applications where we can use the gears which are manufactured by using the sand casting process. But here specifically mentioned that without the finishing operation, these are the some of the applications are there. But again, one must understand what are the some of the characteristics of the sand casting process, which we must know when we are differentiating between the different kind of the sand casting, different kind of the casting processes for making the gears. So as we know, when we are considering this sand casting process, so there are some of the unique characteristics which are there. Okay, so when we are considering this particular the process, so when a small number of the gears which we want, there is absolutely the no concern about an quality. Suppose we are expecting the medium and the low quality of the gears as well as in a small numbers. So this is what is the one of the process which is again a cheaper process to use to manufacture the gear. Again, whatever the entire tooling cost for making the gears by using the sand casting process is quite reasonable. Again, related to the whatever the kind of the surface finish and the dimensional accuracy is there. So we are not getting that much amount of the quality of the surface finish by using this particular the sand casting process. Okay, and apart from that also there are again the two characteristics which are there. So which is mentioned here, due to the low precision and the high backlash, they are very noisy. If suppose we are manufacturing the gear by using the sand casting process, so in which there is an no excellent surface finish is there and somewhat kind of the dimensional accuracy is there, but they are not exactly accurate. So when we try to mesh or when we want to convert the speed from one location to the another location or the motion from one location to the another location, so definitely they will create a more noise. Okay, so they are suited for the non-critical applications. Okay, very precisely mentioned. These are the what we can consider as an characteristics. But still, if the question is there, when suppose there is a no excellent surface finish and no dimensional accuracy, then why we need to recommend this kind of the gears? So my answer is to that particular the question is, although there are the different kinds of the gear manufacturing processes are there, but when we are considering the sand casting process, okay, so when there is a no such a critical kind of the applications which is supposed to be there, so in that particular case, we are going to consider this particular the process for making the gears by using the sand casting process. Okay, so that is what is the one of the important point related to the sand casting process. Then apart from that also, the second process which is there in the molding process. Okay, please wait 1 minute. Okay, sorry for there is an one call. So as we know, again apart from that, in the casting process, the second process which is there, which is on your screen, B is the metal mold casting. So again, taking into consideration the whatever the kinds of the applications are there, where the unfinished gears which is supposed to require in several different kinds of the industry. So agro industry is one of them, where we can use this particular the process, metal mold casting. So medium sized steel gears with limited accuracy and the finish are often made in a single or the few pieces by metal mold casting process. These are for the general and the precision use. The cast preforms are properly machined. So definitely we must understand what exactly the application of that particular the process is there. Now the next process, suppose we are going to consider in the casting process, is the die casting process. Okay, so normally, as we know, when we want to produce kind of the component for the more in a number, or we can say that it is for the mass production. Okay, and the size of the gear is suppose a small. Okay, so then we are going to select the particular the gear manufacturing process under the casting process is the die casting process. So it is mentioned here a lot or the mass production of the small gears of a low melting point alloys of aluminum, zinc, copper, magnesium are done mainly by using this die casting process. Okay, so as we know, normally the whatever the kind of the die casting process, so in which whatever the die which is divided into the two half, and with the help of an piston or the plunger cylinder arrangement, so we are injecting the liquid molten metal into the shape of the die cavity. Okay, so once we prepared the gear by using this particular the kind of the die, so after that some kind of the finishing operations are also required, so as to get the required dimensions of the gear. Taking into consideration the importance of the die casting process in gear manufacturing, there are again the some of the important characteristics are there, applications are there, and the materials are there. So normally it is mentioned that in the previous slide, the material we are going to consider, it is aluminum, zinc, copper, magnesium, okay, as well as the brass. These are the different kinds of the material which normally we are going to use for making the gear by using the die casting process. Okay, so normally this particular the die casting process we are going to recommend for the small size of the gears. So whatever the category of the small size of the gears which are there. Now, so far as the whatever these gears which are manufactured by using the die casting process, so that is normally used in the different instruments like camera is there, whatever the different kinds of the machines, business machines normally we can call. Apart from that, the washing machines are there, then gear pumps are there, small speed reducer motors which are there, then the lawn mowers which is used to cut the grass. Okay, so these are the some of the applications where the small gears are used, which are manufactured by using the this die casting process. Again, when we are considering this die casting process as an gear manufacturing process for making the small gear, so it is suited for the large scale production as we earlier discussed. So whatever the tooling cost which is related to this die casting process for making the gear, so it is more as compared to the previous kind of the sand casting process. And again, one more difference, one more comparison point which is to be there. So when we are considering with and sand casting process, so we are getting the better surface finish and accuracy related to the tooth spacing and the concentricity of the gear compared to the sand casting process. Okay, so this is what is the third process normally we are going to consider for making the gear under the casting. The next one is the investment casting process. So we know what is the entire process of the investment casting means is there. We may call that particular the process also lost wax process of the casting. So do you remember what exactly the steps are there in the investment casting? Anyone from you? Anyone from you?
येस सर.
Yes, please.
सर इन्व्हेस्टमेंट कास्टिंग मध्ये फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल पॅटर्नचा यूज करून एक कॉम्प्लेक्स शेप बनवले जातात. नंतर ते कंबाईन केले जातात एका सिम्पल ह्याच्यावर रॉड वरती. त्यानंतर
Yes.
त्याला वॅक्स मध्ये बुडवतात. वॅक्स मध्ये
Yes.
त्याच्यावरती लेअर तयार होते. ती
Yes.
वॅक्सची लेअर हार्ड करतात. त्यानंतर त्याला परत सिरामिक मध्ये बुडवतात. सिरामिक
Yes.
मध्ये बुडवल्यानंतर तो वॅक्स मेल्ट करून बाहेर काढला जातो आणि
Yes.
त्यानंतर त्या सिरामिकच्या लेअरला हार्ड केलं जातं. हीट ट्रीटमेंट दिली जाते आणि
Yes.
आफ्टर हीट ट्रीटमेंट त्याच्यामध्ये मेटल पोअर केलं जातं आणि मेटल सॉलिडिफाय झाल्यानंतर ती सिरॅमिकची लेअर ब्रेक केली जाते आणि आपला मोल्ड असं कास्टिंग मटेरियल हे केलं जातं.
Yes, yes, correct. Absolutely correct, Suraj. So whatever we can call also that particular the investment casting process, also we can call it as a lost wax casting process, because there is a some of the kind of the quantity or the amount of the wax, so it may get lost during the entire process. So that's why this casting process is called as a investment casting as well as or lost wax casting process. So normally when we are considering this particular the process for making the gear, okay, so we may call this particular the process that is what is called as a near net shape method. Okay, so whatever the exact shape of the gear and the dimensions of the gear, normally from the small size to the medium size of the gears, okay, with an high accuracy and the excellent surface finish. So that is produced with the help of this the process normally called as a investment casting process. So due to the higher surface finish and exact kind of the high accuracy, so this entire process is somewhat costlier, okay, as compared to the whatever the first three processes we have seen. But normally, as we know, this process, which is we can consider as an investment casting process. So whatever the gears due to the high accuracy as well as the high surface finish we are getting. So these are the what the kinds of the gears which is manufactured by using the investment casting process. So that are used when there is a requirement for to carry the very heavy load and the high amount of the stresses. So definitely in that particular case, these kinds of the gears are we are going to use there. So likewise, as we know, when we want to perform the investment casting process, so we must know what kind of the material which is available for making the gears. Okay, tool steel is there, then nitriding steel is there, then monel is there, then beryllium copper which is supposed to be there. Okay, so these are the variety of the material that we can consider for the gear making by using the investment casting. Okay, so apart from that also whatever the kinds of the some of the important features of this investment casting for making the gear, so it is reasonably accurate gears because we are getting the excellent surface finish as well as the high accuracy of the gear. Then apart from that, it is applicable for the variety of the material as it is mentioned. Then refractory mold material that can be used in the investment casting process. It allows the high melt temperature material. That is also one of the unique feature or the characteristic is there. And accuracy of the entire gears. So that is depends on whatever the kinds of the original master pattern that is used. As Suraj is pointed out, we are making the pattern first, then we are making the number of the pattern, and we are making the tree, and that we have to insert it into the abrasive slurry into the, and then later on we are going to pour the wax inside that. Okay, so whatever the entire accuracy of that particular the gear which we are expecting to sustain under the heavy loads and the high stresses. So entire the accuracy it depends on how we are going to design and manufacture the master pattern. Okay, so some of the unique features or the characteristics are there related to the investment casting. So likewise, there is a definitely the shell mold casting is there. So in which again it is one of the next process of the casting process in which the small gears in the batches are produced with this help of this particular the casting process. The quality provided by this process lies between the sand casting process and the investment casting process. Now see, whatever the gear manufacturing process, so first we are considering the forming process. So in the forming process also we are considering the sand casting process, sorry, casting process. And in the casting process also there are the different kinds of the processes are there. Okay, so as we have seen, First one is the sand casting process. Second one is the metal mold casting process. Third one is the die casting process. Fourth one is the investment casting process. Fifth one is the shell mold casting process. So for each and every kind of the casting process which is used for making the gear is having some unique features, and which is having some quality as well as the surface finish parameters, which is we can consider as an output parameter. Okay, so in the some of the casting processes we are getting an excellent surface finish and excellent quality of the gears. In some what the cases we are not getting that much kind of the quality related to the surface finish, and the accuracy is there. Then as we know, again the next kind of the process, that is the sixth one, which is known as the centrifugal casting process. So we know normally when we are going to perform the centrifugal casting process, so whatever the kind of the small objects, they may be similar in the nature or dissimilar in the nature. Okay, so by considering the application of the centrifugal force, whatever the molten metal which is supposed to be there, so we are pouring it with the application of the centrifugal force. So that's why the name of the casting we can call as a centrifugal casting process. Okay, so here there are the some of the small video clips which is available with me. So just I want to show you that particular the video clip, so it will be easy to understand how the gears which are manufactured by using the casting process. Okay, so you might have known already this sand casting, and apart from that the different kinds of the processes, but how the gears which are manufactured by using this casting process. Okay, so please wait, so that I will share the video link with you. I think my screen is visible to you, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is this initial process? Anyone? Shlok Astekar?
Belting.
Yes, correct. It is an whatever the raw material which is available with us, taking into consideration the whatever the kind of the object, means the gear we want to manufacture, from that material, the whatever that the scrap and the which is of the same material, so we are placing on the furnace and we are heating it to convert it into the molten state. This is the process which we are observing in the conventional sand casting process. It's a manual sand casting process for making the gear. Yes. This is the sand particles are placing on the coke box and the drag box. So ramming is there with the help of hand hammer or the different kinds of the means. Then removing the unwanted sand particles from that particular the box, and adding the powder, that is what is the binders. This process is known as a venting. Okay. Now half part is ready. So whatever the pattern is there, the removal is actually removing that particular pattern. Again they are adding the powder. They are placing over the another box, spoke box and the drag box, kind of the suppose the pattern is there. So by making the provision for the runner, riser, all the locations, and again the sand which is filled into the upper box. Again venting operation is there. Okay. So now they are removing whatever that particular the pattern is there. Unwanted sand particles. Now removal of that particular the pattern. Yes, this is what is the cavity which we are getting after removal of the pattern. Now whatever the molten metal which is there in that the furnace, so it is being taken away, and now the process of pouring. Fumes which are coming out from that particular the molding. Okay, and after some time we are breaking down that particular the mold, upper box as well as the lower box, and we are removing the casting along with the different kinds of the elements of the getting system, such as the runner is there, riser is there, choke is there, or skim bob which is supposed to be there for part of the getting system. Then we are going to remove that particular the unwanted parts. Okay, so in this way what we can say that the gears are manufactured by using the sand casting process. Apart from that also, if we consider there are the different types of the processes which are there related to the gear manufacturing. So again the second video which is available with me, so just I want to show you that video also, so please wait for a while. This is the gear manufacturing method. I think now the screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So on, if you search on the
Used to
YouTube,
transmit power and motion.
there are the number of videos which are available. So you can watch this video on the YouTube also. And when you suppose subscribe my YouTube channel, so whatever the lecture contents are there, and definitely the practicals related to the digital manufacturing lab. So all the videos which are available on that particular the channel. So definitely I will again share my link to you all. So please comment as well as comment on that particular the different videos, as well as you can subscribe that particular the channel. Okay, so please watch this video.
Through the successive engagement of their peripheral feet, gears perform certain key functions within machines and assemblies, such as reversing the direction of rotation or altering the angular orientation of rotary motion. Gears are also used to convert rotary motion into linear motion and vice versa, or to alter gear speed ratios. The methods of machining gears can be classified into two primary categories: gear generating and gear form cutting. Many of the processes used to machine gears may also be used to finish gears. Gear generating involves gear cutting through the relative motion between a rotating cutting tool and the generating motion or rotation of the workpiece. The primary gear generating processes include hobbing and shaping. In hobbing, gear teeth are progressively generated by a series of cuts using a helically fluted cutting tool called a hob. Both the hob and the gear blank rotate as the hob is fed axially across the face of the blank. Hobbing is the principal method for producing spur gears and helical gears, and is also used to produce many special gear forms. The main limitation of hobbing is that it can only be used to produce external gears. Hobbing can be performed on a single gear blank, but also allows for the stacking of workpieces to increase production rates. Shaping generates gear teeth by rotating the workpiece in contact with a reciprocating cutter. The reciprocating cutter may be a pinion-shaped cutter, a multi-tooth rack-shaped cutter, or a single-point cutter. The pinion-shaped cutter's axis is parallel to the gear blank and begins cutting by reciprocating while feeding gradually into the blank to a predetermined cutting depth. The cutter and gear blank rotate slowly at the same pitch circle velocity as the cutter enters and exits the cut, incrementally generating the gear teeth. Rack-shaped cutters typically have between 6 to 12 teeth that reciprocate into the gear blank. Once the rack cutter finishes a pass, the cutter is disengaged and returns to a starting point to begin cutting again. When shaping with a single point cutter, the cutter reciprocates, making successively deeper cuts until a predetermined depth is reached. Gear shapers are used to make internal gears, shoulder gears,
So far as the today's discussion is here, so we'll stop here, and whatever the different kinds of the gear manufacturing processes are there. So in the today's lecture, we'll discuss more about the whatever the casting processes are there. Okay, so thank you all, and in the next lecture we'll try to discuss more about the other kind of the processes which is normally used for manufacturing of the gear. Okay, so as we have seen, some of the processes which are categorized as a forming process, and some of the processes which are coming under the category of the machining process. Okay, so thank you all, and please ask to your friends also to attend the lecture regularly, so that there will be the no any kind of the